I think probably from my perspective in the wider innovation ecosystem here in New Zealand, like the lack of funding has been prohibitive. So it's great to have more and more funding that becomes available, because the more and more people that kind of become more familiar with innovation and what can be achieved, and remove the kind of fear factor that kind of generally exists right now, it can only lead to positive outcomes for the people of the country and the actual country.
Yep.
So it's fantastic.
The New Zealand Tech Podcast, brought to you by Gorilla Technology, proactive and strategic IT.
Hey folks, greetings and welcome along to the New Zealand Tech Podcast. I'm your host, Paul Spain, and today we've got Owen Nalligan, co-founder from Gravity, joining us. How are you, Owen?
Pretty good, man. How are you?
Good. Great to have you on the show. I don't think we had too many Irish on the show before, so, welcome.
That's surprising, considering that we've kind of infiltrated every country in the entire world at this stage. My understanding is that we've the second largest diaspora in the world.
Really?
Something like 70 million passports.
Yeah,
Interesting.
It's good. So maybe for especially because it's your first time on the show, but listeners that don't know who you are, a little bit of an intro on, where you and Gravity fit into this big wide world of tech in New Zealand.
Oh, cool. So Gravity, we're an applied innovation company. So we specialize in incubating early stage tech products. We do a lot of work with big business. We also do a lot of work with kind of impact ventures and a series of work with startups as well. We actually work with some of your show sponsors, which is cool and fabulous. We focus on getting kind of version 1 into market. So version 1 in our world is different than MVP, so minimum viable product, which a lot of startups talk about, but our version 1 is more the enterprise grade stuff where there's a whole heap of enterprise patterns. We do also have our own proprietary methodology, so the way that we do it is quite unique, kind of 3 broad phases. Conceive an idea, clarify what that idea is, and then create the end product. It can be quite enjoyable. It can be quite stressful. Moving a lot of kind of unknown into known is kind of where we're at. And then we end up generating quite a lot of commercial value for our end clients, which is fabulous.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Good. We'll look forward to learning a bit more of that. Well, let's jump in. Of course, a big thank you to our show partners, to 1NZ, 2 Degrees, Spark, HP, Workday, and Gorilla Technology. Top of the show on the New Zealand front, one thing that regular listeners will know is something dear to my heart is full self-driving technology and autonomous driving technology, and Tesla actually making some moves in this part of the world.
Finally coming.
It's like, my goodness, I mean, 6 years of having a Tesla vehicle and having paid for the so-called FSD or full self-driving features, and we're almost there. Although we could have probably said that every day for the last 6 years, and others, some other guests and people that we know, of course, that have purchased prior to the Model 3 launching in the market, with a Model S or a Model X with FSD, and still waiting as well. But what we've heard via a LinkedIn post from head of Tesla on the vehicle side, Australia and New Zealand, is that regulatory hurdles are cleared and they are going to kick off, fairly soon for those with Teslas and with the full self-drive enabled, as long as they've got the hardware for, which basically actually rules out most Tesla owners probably at this point, because there's obviously a lot of the hardware 3 in the market. So look, I think it's going to be really interesting to see how it plays out.
How cool is it? Do you mean that's an exciting time for New Zealand in particular? Interesting. I wonder how it'll handle the Kiwi roads.
Well, I think they've done a fair bit of testing in New Zealand and Australia, and from the dots I've joined up, someone my brother knows was one of these drivers, because I remember that did the testing, because Tesla advertised for drivers to do this stuff in New Zealand and Australia. And he had someone who he said was doing something for Tesla, and that was pretty much as far as the information went. So they were obviously clearly under non-disclosure agreement, and never heard anything. But this guy was someone quite enjoyed driving and was probably a good person for the job. And we've seen the videos shared online as well of some of this testing going on in Australia. So let's see how it happens. I have feedback from one of our team here who was just in west coast of the US in the last few days, and so he was driving a Model X Tesla with FSD around. In fact, that statement's probably a lie because he kind of wasn't, because it was driving itself, and he was saying very, very light on the intervention. So
That's
technology
good.
has moved ahead quite considerably from when I was trying that in the US kind of late last year. Of course, we've got the robo-taxis, and they've had a few issues, but I think an improvement, and that technology is going to be rolling out in North America to those that have been using the FSD or FSD supervised as they call it. So presumably what we are getting in New Zealand and Australia is going to be a pretty mature version of that technology, and would, as we've seen previously, is going to align. They tend to align stuff internationally, so it's good that we'll be flipping from a really old technology stack to a really modern one. But you've got to have the newer vehicle with the FSD4 or AI4 chip.
Do you think the people's political views on Tesla will slow down the adoption?
Oh, look, I think all of these things have an impact, but when you've got really impressive technology that is mind blowing. Often, it probably doesn't have maybe as much impact as
probably especially for the early adopters.
Certainly. Musk and his politics over the last period, I think, have been pretty polarizing. But I think you do come to realise that if you really get to know the people in most companies, most political parties, whatever, you're not going to agree with 100% of what they do, right? And so that's it's interesting, and I don't know how you get that stuff right. You could say, look, New Zealand shouldn't be trading with China because of some of the stuff that the Chinese Communist Party does, but you'd be cutting off your nose to spite your face sort of thing, because how would New Zealand actually operate?
And the rest of the world is progressing
as a modern economy without access to the technology that's coming out of China, and how do you differentiate between a product from a country, the political regime, the things that you like that regime does, against the things that you don't.
Well, hopefully there'll be lots of other followers coming pretty soon as well. So there's plenty of choice for everyone in the country. Also on a New Zealand front, government has announced their investment in the New Zealand Institute for Advanced Technology. We're based out of Auckland, focusing on AI, quantum tech, synthetic biology, and really with the aim to be boosting innovation, productivity, and our global competitiveness through high-tech research and collaboration. So we've seen, I guess, Callaghan innovation kind of going away, but now we've got this new institute. So this is so exciting, honestly, especially off the back of even just the AI strategy. It's needed in this country. Like 230 odd million that'll have an impact. Hopefully it'll have an impact on jobs as much as everything else, and put us at the forefront where we should be.
Well, I think that we, especially, listeners to New Zealand Tech Podcast, recognise that so much of our success is linked to technology, how well we leverage technology, how we address the risks, how we, take our creativity from across the country and then convert that into products and services that we can export. So having the government really get behind with an investment in this area and that focus, I think is something we've kind of been curious what they will and won't do, and there is a level to to which, I guess it can be debated how much difference can a government make in some of these areas. Ultimately, the key is that we see, the right people coming together and we get the right investments and so on. But sometimes, government can make a really significant, difference in these areas, sometimes in the wrong way when they block things. So, that's one thing that I think I like around government investment in this area. They've kind of got skin in the game,
totally,
as it were, because they're putting that money down, and you don't put that down unless you're expecting to get a good return on that that investment. And so, I think that helps with the alignment there.
And definitely, and probably from my perspective in the wider innovation ecosystem here in New Zealand, like the lack of funding has been prohibitive. So it's great to have more and more funding that becomes available, because the more and more people that kind of become more familiar with innovation and what can be achieved, and kind of remove the kind of fear factor that kind of generally exists right now. It can only lead to positive outcomes for the people of the country and the actual country.
Yep.
So it's fantastic. And especially with filling the void of kind of the gap since Callahan left. It's great to see. A bit of a shame that probably sounds like it's almost exclusively in Auckland, but it has to start somewhere, so hopefully we'll see success there and roll that across. It's where the people are, so it's where the base is.
Yeah, I'm sure it won't be. It's not exclusively about Auckland, so And one of the other ones just caught my attention. We've talked, I guess, a fair bit about move to renewable electricity, and the role of that. Also, as we have more and more hyperscale data center investments going on in New Zealand, moving to EVs. We've got this increasing reliance on the electricity grid and supply in New Zealand. So it was interesting to hear that there's a $50 million solar farm that's coming to Hawke's Bay that's going to operate there alongside, I think, a bunch of sheep still going to be running around
How exciting is that?
On the farm and so on. And there's been a few sort of stops and starts in that particular area with projects that have been previously announced. But look, this looks like a pretty encouraging move forward to hear about this latest news.
And it's great to hear as well the investment and what that'll mean for the area and the jobs and everything else like that. It'll be really cool. They've had a tough time.
Yep. So rolling forward, and they're saying that this is a 35 hectare solar farm.
How big is a hectare?
I don't know. I don't know how you describe.
From memory, I think is it 8 acres. So what would that be? That's pretty big. Anyway,
yeah. That's I think a reasonable space, and they're saying it's going to provide enough power for central Hawke's Bay districts, which this is about 9,000 connections, I think, across homes and businesses. Now I don't know how that breaks down exactly, because there's a time of day where solar provides, and there's a time of day where it doesn't, and so what else we'll sort of see going on in those regards. But you don't necessarily have a particular need to connect solar direct to batteries and so on. The peak demands tend to be at particular times, and solar will definitely help with that. And then there's obviously lots of other generation around the country, but I think we do need to keep these sort of investments coming and not make it too hard to deliver them. I still wonder around we get so much benefit out of the dams that we have in the South Island and so on, Clyde Dam and the like, and whether we'll ever see any of that sort of style of investment again. But I think there are challenges in terms of what the impact of those sort of things is.
And sustainability is the future, so you got to make the investments, otherwise get left behind.
Yeah. Yep. Now, looking on the international front, few interesting things going on. Maybe we can start with the windsurf acquisition dramas. This was something you were suggesting would be good to chat about.
What a saga.
today. Maybe for those who aren't so familiar, a bit of an overview of Windsurf as a company, and then from there, what's been happening.
Windsurf, they've created an IDE, so an integrated development environment, which is kind of a tool that a lot of developers and engineers use. And it's exclusively AI powered, so it's using like agentic AI. And what that basically means is that via prompts and indexing of code bases, that the speed of which people can create code is a lot faster, and generally it's open to external knowledge, so it's got up-to-date documentation, so the quality of the code is quite good. And it's one of a number of products in the market that do similar-ish type things. But it's just so interesting because of the sheer saga that's created. So OpenAI, who I'm sure your listeners are familiar with, had a deal in place where they were going to buy Windsurf or acquire Windsurf for in the region of $3 billion. And then overnight, seemingly, that deal was cut, which left the 250-odd employees in Windsurf a bit confused. They didn't know what was happening.
This was apparently because of Microsoft, who obviously big investor in OpenAI, right? That there's something going on there. Is that the way that you've understood it? Because it's actually hard to work out what is true and what's not on some of these things, right?
There's so much information
what's
online.
What's the rumor, what's the reality?
Yeah, totally. And depending on what side you're listening to, it's hard to know what is true. There's also some talks about because of how Windsurf was using Anthropic, so kind of one of the competitors to OpenAI, but yet whose models is kind of ubiquitous in a lot of places. And apparently that had something to do with the deal falling apart. But it kind of feel for the employees because they were going in, I think, to an all hands, or maybe it happened on Thursday night. On a Friday, they had an all hands saying that the deal was collapsing. And then seemingly over that weekend, Google then made a play and took a lot of the executives for quite a lot of money. So there seems to be this massive thing happening in the US right now where it's like all the big players, Facebook, everything else, are like spending quite a bit of cash, quite a bit of coin on like getting talent.
Insane numbers, right? Like we
tens of millions of dollars.
Come and join us for tens of millions. I mean, has $1 billion been bandied around? I mean, I've seen some crazy numbers, right? And like this is something we've never seen or heard of in prior years, and now it's just like the sky is the limit.
In the sporting sense, right? You see like players being in basketball and soccer being traded for like hundreds of millions of dollars. But like it's interesting that it's kind of like now happening in the tech space. And don't get me wrong, these people are like insanely talented, but just the sheer amount of money that's been spent, you'd have to question what is the end goal, what is the kind of like a Facebook strategy, what are they actually looking to do? But probably going back to the Windsurf piece, Google over that weekend acquired a number of the key personnel that were in Windsurf, which was a bit of a, I would think it's a bit of a poor move as you're one of the leaders of that Windsurf to just up and go and leave basically 250 odd people behind. And then a company called Cognition, who run a tool called Devlin, which is kind of, again, AI in kind of enterprise space. Kind of it's a tool to help developers again. Basically then just acquired the rest of it. So it took the customer base that Windsurf has, took their IP and took the remaining personnel. So at least everybody was kind of looked after. And then I understand that they respect their vesting periods and everything else like that. So in the event of another material event happening, that those people will be looked after. But it was just this 100% a Netflix series is going to be created off the back of this because it's just it's so insane. It's so insane how quickly things turned around. And like I imagine negotiations like that would take a reasonable period of time, but it went from like a deal fall through on a Thursday, Friday, and then like maybe 7 days later, all these events happened with Google, but then the ends deal with Cognition actually happening.
I guess everyone's using AI to write whatever legal agreements, to review the legal agreements.
Oh, they must be.
Because these sort of things are usually backwards and forwards between lawyers for, days, weeks, months, years
totally.
sometimes.
Right? But I guess that's the world that we're going towards. Yeah. So they've Cognition have got the IP, the product, the trademark. It is, by all accounts, a reasonably strong business. It does make sense, but it's just the kind of surrounding events that happened after, which make it kind of quite interesting, quite unique, especially in 2025.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've got something like 82 million ARR, which is quite a lot, and then 350 odd enterprise customers. Must be valuable. I wonder why. I would just love to find out more information about why the OpenAI deal fell through. They seem to be, over the course of the past couple of years, having drama seems to follow them a little bit. But I guess they're moving at such pace that it's hard to avoid drama.
Yes, yep, that would be, that's one part of it. And I guess, a lot of these things come down to sort of size, scale, the approach that the leadership take, what they're willing to do or not do, and how many rules that they're willing to break, and so on. And the reality that we're dealing with new things, new business models, new approaches, and
things are changing rapidly.
There's not necessarily any perfect playbook to follow on these things.
A lot of these playbooks are being forged for the first time on a lot of occasions.
Which does keep it quite fascinating to watch from the sidelines.
Well, so much is changing across the board. So much is changing in the model space, not even the models that people are consuming, not mind the business models and everything else. And I also saw something quite recently, which was that Cursor, which is an alternative to Windsurf, which was something like $20 a month. I can't remember the exact details, $20 USD, that they've kind of changed how people can use the tool, as in, like, I think their business model was that they were, all of these API, I assume your listeners would understand that all of these tools have calls to external models, and all of these calls cost money, and these calls might only be a couple of cents, right, like that, but over the course of a day or a week or a month, just the cumulative nature of calling them over and over again, like, costs a lot of money. So my understanding was that Cursor, because they're VC backed, would have essentially kind of like eaten the difference on the hope that they would make a higher margin. But it turned out that a lot of the users that are using that tool are power users, and it would be the same case for Windsurf as well, which would mean that, and all the other kind of AI IDEs, that then companies aren't making as much money as what they think they are. And then a lot of them are changing their terms of use to be like, actually, you can only have this number of calls, and then if you call this particular model, and you have to pay this amount of money, which makes it actually really hard for the end user, the person who's using the tool, to know with a degree of certainty how much it's actually going to cost. And because a lot of these AI tools can end up occasionally going down some rabbit holes, that ends up costing people a bit of money.
Yeah, well, if you look at the moment, it seems like a lot of the key players very much focused on how they win market share and out-innovate, and not so much on how they actually will pay the bills behind the scenes, right? So depending on what you're using at a given point in time, you may suddenly find that the price is going to go up by 2 times, 5 times, 10 times at the drop of a hat if a particular entity wants to be profitable. And I imagine we will see that kind of shake out over it'll probably take some years, but we are starting to see some of that where for your $20 you only get a tiny little bit of usage compared with maybe what you were previously, and even platforms that are having these free tiers, right, where you can jump in and you can do deep research with Gemini or Grok or what have you, and anyone can just pile in and do these things, and that it must be burning through some reasonably large amounts of cash in the background to deliver these completely free capabilities. And there are it seems like there's a pretty high percentage of users today who are on these completely free versions, maybe accessing something without even signing in, and walking away without ever spending $1.
And people are clever. They move between different tools because they know that it works like this.
Yeah.
I guess one of the other things that these providers might be betting on, this is a bit speculative on my behalf, is that the cost of intelligence is probably going to come down. So like the newer models cost a lot of money, but probably in the next like 12 months to 18 months and stuff like that, there's kind of some models which will probably be pretty negligible. We can see that the kind of like level of quote unquote intelligence that these models have is just exponentially growing still. And there's newer models. I don't know whether you've heard about Kimi K2 and stuff like that, an open source version that is comparable to some of the leading commercial models, which Moore's Law, I guess, will be that in a very short period of time that it'll be pretty much free, but we're still probably a little bit away from there. So then these businesses are probably making strategic guesses on how they will make their money.
Yeah. Oh, look, it is such a fascinating area, and there's always things that are just a few steps away, right? So it's like working out, well, where do we put our focus at the moment? Times leveraging AI, and what's going to become broadly accessible over the time ahead. I mean, you'd look at the video side of AI, the AI video generation.
Yeah.
And it's like we've got all the demos, but it's actually reasonably expensive to produce that.
I can remember when
that content,
was
right?
it, what's the Google's one, Veo? Is that the one with Veo 3? When that came out, I literally just burned like $10 credit on just a poor prompt, to be honest with you. Yeah. But it's super interesting because also I've got a 5-year-old, a little girl, but we have this thing where it's unlocked a lot of her creativity as well. So like she can tell me something and I'll generate an image, and then she'll say, oh, can we have that? And a lot of it's based on mermaids and stuff like that, but we'll generate an image based on a mermaid and then create like a 10-second video. And like she's astounded by it. So it's just... It's unlocking.
It's just mind blowing.
Yeah, and she goes to daycare and shows all her friends. Yeah. So how cool is that?
Yeah. I mean, just what is possible? What's achievable?
This stage, pretty much everything is going to be possible.
It's insane. Yeah.
It's I guess probably one of the interesting things is how people are using everything in their workflows, and probably over the course of time, what we'll see is that people will have a whole heap of different tools that they use in their workflow that's specific to their workflow, and leveraging as much of the incredible advancements that are happening, which make it suitable for them.
Yeah, talking of kids and family and the sort of AI crossover, Grok has made some interesting moves. Of course, Grok, XAI, X, it's kind of, one entity now, or Twitter. The CEO from the Twitter X side, Linda Yaccarino, has recently resigned. But looking at the Grok app last week was rather interesting. Little banner at the top encouraging you to kind of chat with the personality. I forget her name, but it was you're effectively getting pushed a little kind of I don't know, a not safe for work entity to chat with, and it was quite a shock. I was with some of my team. We were in a ride share coming back from a meeting, and this had sort of it had come up, the Grok 4 and this new model and how exciting it is. And I opened up Grok, and I kind of knew, Grok 4, you've got to pay whatever extra it is to get access to it at the moment. But I thought, maybe they've opened it up for a few more users. Well, I opened it up, and suddenly we've got this chat thing. So we clicked in on, and we didn't get too far before it's like, I think we need to
stop.
We need to close this.
Back out here.
It's the directions in which this technology is going. I think there's some work to do on the guardrails, shall we say? And I think something where as society, there's a lot to kind of think about in terms of how appropriate are some of these uses, and
totally.
What is the harm that it could cause. At varying levels, we lean into what the technology can do. Just because it can do it, that doesn't necessarily mean that that's what how we should be using it.
I actually saw this morning as well. I don't know whether you are or whether your listeners are familiar with a company called Replit, which is kind of like a hosting environment that's got some AI stuff.
It's quite interesting because you can fire in there and it'll build websites and apps and
totally.
things, right?
As they had an interesting thing happen overnight, I think it was, where the AI deleted a production database, and it wasn't just any old Joe blogs. It was something like 19,000 customers that were kind of deleted, and the kind of founder was like quite furious, or the founder of the tool that was being created, and then the founder of Replit has come out and kind of immediately they've changed how deployments and stuff happen. But people, I guess, are possibly leaning towards being too trusting to what AIs say and do. So you just kind of always be that, just be careful more than anything else.
Yeah, that one's quite a shock, isn't it?
Yeah.
The Replit CEO apologises after AI engine says it made a catastrophic error in judgment and destroyed all production data. I mean, you know,
that's
giving
a headline that's hard to come back from.
Over to AIs is something that we're increasingly doing, right?
Yeah, and especially with that, I think it was Harvard that came out with the brain rot study, and it's just because people are getting, I guess, cognitively lazy for this kind of stuff, just accept and accept and accept. But kind of there's still risk that exists there, so you got to be careful with what you're actually doing, because it can have a big impact. In that case, like a big commercial impact for that individual.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, madness.
So next up, read that Mexico are making biometric identification mandatory for all citizens by law. So they've got a particular system, CURP system, which includes a lot of data already, and they have had a voluntary option where you can give the state your biometric data, and you get varying benefits about making it easier to identify you. And I guess there's the simplicity it brings, right, of having all these technologies all lined up, and we all are pretty used to that with our smartphones. I don't need to enter a PIN most of the time because of biometrics. The flip side is, in that sort of case where you put, say, biometrics into a smartphone and it's just stored locally, is the ability to secure that is very, very good. Yeah. Right? And for your biometrics not to leak out. When you start giving this sort of information for it even just to leave your device and go somewhere centrally, whether it's government or otherwise, and I guess we've also seen this with Sam Altman from OpenAI and the WorldCoin sort of project that he's been doing. That's been doing these retina scans on people primarily in parts of the world where there's a lot less money to go around, and so incentivizing people that way. Yeah, really curious to see Mexico sort of making this move and making it mandatory. How do you feel about this sort of thing?
Conflicted viewpoints, to be honest with you, because I can see how it would make things more convenient and more secure, but I can see why some folks might be rightly worried about privacy and all the data that's being collected. But equally, I can see that the world is moving in that direction, so it's kind of a little bit of an inevitability, as long as it's done safely, securely, and robustly, and that the people are aware of what is actually happening with their data. It's possibly also going to open Mexico up in the cyber space to be a little bit more vulnerable, a bit more targeted. I'm sure it's already happening right now. But yeah, it will be interesting to see what countries, if any, follow and what happens in that space.
Yeah, it's
interesting.
It's really fascinating to me, especially the pace at which it's being done. So they're saying, according to what's been put in place, their digital transformation agency must get this unified identity platform created within 90 days.
Far out. And
then public and private institutions will be required to update their systems to recognise this new ID. And they're also planning to kickstart nationwide program to collect biometric data from children and adolescents within something like 4 months, 120 days.
What an aggressive timeline.
And, as though this probably wasn't a controversial enough issue to start with, then you put those sort of pressures on in terms of timing, and you really increase the chance of things going wrong, right? And I think they're as you talk about, there's a level of inevitability to technology and AI kind of increasing in its role in society, and because there are lots of benefits from an efficiency perspective and so on. But I think there does seem to be a growing movement looking at some of these things, whether it's digital health IDs, whether it's national sort of digital IDs, international things, and some some real concerns around how that can play out. And when you I guess look at some of the regimes internationally who maybe are less trustworthy, and then monitoring that might go onto smartphones in a particular region. So a government has a level of control through I guess there's a whole range of other sort of possibilities, and how we kind of get these things right and navigate correctly. I'm not sure that what Mexico are jumping in and doing at pace here is probably the perfect example of how to get this stuff right.
On the surface, it makes sense. There's going to be efficiencies, everything else, as long as it's done correctly, but an aggressive timeline.
Yeah, and I guess the question is, what is correctly too, right?
Yeah, totally.
Right?
And again, this is bias based on kind of like a Western view, I guess. Interesting. I'm really keen to see how it actually plays out.
So I think we're in a time where technology can, I think, do more and more that is so good, and its potential to lift different economies and so on. But with that comes I think there being increasing areas of risk as well, and how we get that balance correct is an interesting one. I see the UK who were set to be enforcing an ability of access into encrypted systems, the likes of the messenger type apps that we run and so on. I've seen news coming through that there's now been some pretty severe pushback from the US to the UK based on sort of treaties and things that they've got in place. That what was going to happen there may well not proceed. So it is interesting to see the different pushes in different directions there around what is and isn't the right way that we manage and operate technology and surveillance and identities and what are the getting through and really debating, I think, some of the realities of the sort of the best cases, but also of the worst cases, and breaking those things down is I think probably pretty important for society to address, because I think naturally for me digitally enabling everything is really, really good. It's like it's going to make things smoother and easier, and that's sort of my default go-to. But I think the more different people share things with me, it's like I can see that, and the more you kind of you look at the fact that as a society we can get stuff right a really large percentage of the time, but it doesn't take too much where these things then can be twisted and used.
And if it goes wrong, what is the impact of it going wrong?
In bad ways. So
even on that 90-day rollout plan, I wonder how much AI is going to be leveraged there along the way. We'll be watching this with.
Yeah, definitely. One area to watch with interest, and I think we do have to have countries that are going to lead the way.
Somebody needs to do it.
Others can adopt quickly. Others can adopt more slowly. So, some of these areas I can see will make sense for New Zealand maybe to slow down a bit on, and we don't always have to be the
first mover.
The first. So let's see. A couple of other quick topics to touch on. Microsoft now I'd never heard about this before, and it seems like a lot of other people hadn't heard about it before, have people called digital escorts. And this seems to be going on in relation to the work that they do for the US Defense Department's technology systems, where Microsoft, I guess, have been outsourced this work to run and maintain varying aspects of these systems. And apparently it was a key part of Microsoft winning access to US federal government's cloud computing business going back about a decade. And there's a real reliance on US citizens running this stuff with appropriate security clearances. But apparently it breaks down into quite an interesting way where, yes, people need to have a certain security clearance in some areas, but then in other areas, the people with the clearance considered digital escorts, and then they're escorting and that's a strange terminology, but they're kind of overseeing the work of others who don't necessarily have a clearance, not necessarily even within the US, and apparently a chunk of those are Chinese based, and then you've got a whole lot of concerns there around how connected are these people with spy agency type stuff and so on in China, right? It's like a really unusual
very
scenario.
unusual. Yeah,
It's
totally.
Like, how do you get the scenario where
the
most
country,
secure and trusted kind of data, you actually, chunks of the work are being done where you've got these concerns from a geopolitical perspective,
Exactly.
and they seem to have gone out the window.
It's just wild to think that what we know as like the defense departments and everything around it is that it could be vulnerable to something like this, to a cyber attack through something like this. It's a bit wild.
Yeah, well, there was a statement in an article I read on this that said the Office of the Director of National Intelligence has called China the most active and persistent cyber threat to US government, private sector, and critical information networks. So on one hand, you've got that. On the other hand, you've got Microsoft and a whole lot of other things going on, right? Like, revoking visas for Chinese students and dramas around, TikTok, Huawei, and all sorts of Chinese companies. And then, you've got, this outsourcing to China effectively of running their defense department systems.
It's,
very, very interesting. And it seemed like
curious.
It really, I think caught quite a chunk of people off guard within the Department of Defense. So,
we'll see what happens next.
Yeah. Now, zero-day flaws are, issues are reasonably common, but I see there's some pretty big dramas going on with Microsoft SharePoint for those who are kind of running it on premise or not running the cloud versions of it. You read through this. What kind of jumped out to you around this one? Because in New Zealand we've got the GCSB, their National Cybersecurity Centre, the NCSE, having issued an alert around these vulnerabilities that are affecting SharePoint, which will be, I'm picking still some of our larger organisations that tend to run this sort of stuff on premises, and there are, I guess there's probably, businesses of a few scales that will tend to not be 100% cloud when it comes to SharePoint. And look, SharePoint's run by most organisations, I would say.
I would imagine it's in like 90+%
in New Zealand because of just how much market share Microsoft have, and that's where documents and files tend to get stored.
Interesting, and hopefully this will have changed, but it didn't seem like that there was a permanent fix that was rolled out very quickly. It reminds me very much of the CloudStrike year or two back, whenever that was, to be like just chaos that ensued.
Yeah.
I guess the good thing is that hopefully it's limited to a subset just of those people on-prem, and would think the majority of people in this day and age have probably migrated from on-prem to cloud. But it would just be interesting to know the percentage of kind of companies that are potentially affected, and also how they're notifying those people and what remediation is in place, because it's a big vulnerability, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and what we hear from Unit 42, which is part of Palo Alto Networks. Yeah, there was commentary from them saying they're seeing attempts, to exploit thousands of SharePoint servers globally, before there's any sort of patch or fix available. So
I would love to know what the kind of second order risk exposure is. And by that, what I really mean is that if there's a company like an agency or something else like that, whether they've got any data on that SharePoint site regarding kind of another entity, and what kind of risk that other entity might have as due to it. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah. It highlights, I guess, this is some of the flip side to being technologically enabled and leveraging technology is these sort of risks will just continue in one form.
Yeah, totally. And
or another.
what's I don't know, it's becoming very prevalent in 2025, and it has been for the past couple of years. Just the sheer increase in like cyber risk. And I guess kind of from a small business, possibly even a big business, generally are aware of what those risks are. But from a small to medium, like it's hard for Joe Blogs on the street to actually know how safe and secure their environment is, which is kind of scary. And just the kind of increase on attacks is exponential at this stage. People are all talking about AI, but this is where a lot is happening as well.
Yeah, it really is, and we've got to be important. We've got to recognise the importance of staying on top of
100%,
of cyber matters, and New Zealand probably a bit, well, we are a chunk behind a lot of other countries in terms of our preparedness for a range of reasons.
And what I've seen a lot has been, even when patches are provided, that people don't jump on the patch and apply the patch in a timely fashion. So then there's just like this ongoing threat that may exist.
Yes, and I mean we see a broad range of issues, across, from what my team get access to. We're often out, called in to carry out audits, so either dedicated cybersecurity audits or cybersecurity as part of a broader, kind of auditing process. And even those organisations that are really committed on a cybersecurity front will have a range of issues and areas to step up on, and then you get the varying kind of extreme cases where organisations have left a whole lot of things wide open that are
unintentionally.
This is the basics, and you're not doing it because there just isn't that thought given. So any organisation that isn't regularly looking at their risk profile from a cyber perspective is going to have a whole range of risks.
And more and more, I'm sure insurance mandates will mean that.
Yeah, well, I think there is a positive for those who have cyber insurance or committed to keeping that coverage going, is that the insurance companies are pushing more and more. I remember the early sort of questionnaires and so on that would come through insurance wise, and they were pretty loose, but there's also a reality that in some of these cases the insurance companies are kind of getting themselves off the hook if you haven't followed things properly, and I think that will just increase. It's going to get harder and harder, and to reach the levels that they need, or you'll find that you're not covered. A couple of products just wanted to tap into on that we've been looking at. I've been looking across the Motorola handsets. Now, Motorola is a brand that was, I guess, for me, when I used Motorola, was really in the 90s originally. One of my early smartphones on, I guess, the forerunner to Spark's current network, which was Telecom NZ network. I had a pretty sure it was on their network, a Motorola MicroTac, which was, the early kind of flip phone, right?
Yep.
So, they'd had their bricks, and Motorola were really that that early dominant name
hugely popular here in New Zealand.
When it came to mobile phones, they were very, very strong. Nokia, of course, kind of came in. So those were kind of the two brands I remember using myself during the
same
the
in
90s,
Ireland, exact same.
And I remember the Nokia or the Nokia would have been on what is now the 1NZ, but in those earliest days it was Bell South that they launched at in New Zealand, and some futuristic sort of advertising and the first GSM network, so the network where you could roam when you travelled around the world, and you could take a SIM card in and out and move it from one device to another, and so on. And I mean, good memories of using that
Nostalgic.
technology, and it was truly a game changer in terms of being able to have this communication device, with you all the time.
It's madness to think that was only 20, 30 years ago, and how much things have changed.
Oh, it's insane. And I still remember it was actually a pretty dodgy company it turned out at, but I got engaged to do a small piece of work in Christchurch, and I'd love to visit Christchurch, family down there and so on, Auckland based, but they wanted me to come down and do this particular piece of work. And anyway, I agreed to, but it was on the basis that they paid for the work before I left, and they were covering all the flights and so on.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'll come to it at the end, but I found out later that they were a bit dodgy. They just didn't give me didn't give me confidence that we should be opening up any sort of credit to these folks anyway. So flew down for the day, helped them out with whatever. But I think it was partway through the day, the car that this business owner was driving was a rent-a-dent. So I don't know if anyone's come across that, but that's kind of like your bottom of the barrel rental car, right? Rent-a-dent name probably gives that away.
Yeah.
And anyway, partway through, the chap opens up the boot or wherever it was, and he pulls out this briefcase phone, and this is I'm carrying probably something like the Motorola flip phone or something, and this guy pulls this thing out and makes a phone call. I think outside, we were maybe parked outside Riccarton Mall in Christchurch, McDonald's or something rather. Maybe we were stopping for some lunch there. I can't really remember, but it was like, oh, okay, And anyway, there was somebody that was left impacted by this guy. I went to, was going to head to the airport, and I thought, I just don't feel comfortable with these guys. So I called up, and they were like, tickets are all booked. It's all sorted for you. And I called up Air New Zealand. I'm like, is there a booking? Yep. And they're like, yeah, we got a booking here. It hasn't been paid for yet. So I stayed on their premises until it had been paid for. So anyway, the moral of the story is if you see somebody, running around with, some technology and it's 20 times bigger and older,
ask some questions.
Yeah, ask some questions, or anything else that's kind of a little bit off. But anyway, needless to say, they paid for the flights and everything.
Eventually, it all worked out,
and I was able to fly home again. But I did find out from the person that had put them on to me some weeks later that unfortunately the technology provider in Christchurch that had provided all the tech that I was helping with didn't get paid and was left out of pocket for tens of thousands, and these folks wandered off to Australia without paying their bills. Anyway, so that was the Motorola and Nokia era for me. But
good times.
Been trying out some of their Android devices from Motorola. They were in touch over the last few months, and they've got a whole range of phones. Spark seemed to be their partner in New Zealand. So I was in a Spark store the other day, and they've kind of got the full, they had a full range of the Moto, devices, and there are still points where they'll like the old Razor phones, they'll do hello Moto.
Oh yes,
which is all quite.
Oh
cute,
my gosh,
and,
I'm gonna have to buy it now.
Brings back the memories.
Yes, it does.
So it's kind of fun, but they've got a really. Actually quite a broad selection of devices. So the main one I've been trying out is the Razer 50 Ultra. And they have now actually launched internationally, at least, a Razer 60 Ultra. So there's actually a newer model as these things keep iterating. But really enjoyed using that, and lots to like about it, versus the Samsung, and probably the same across the other range of there's a G05, which is low cost, G15 or 15, and then they've got the Edge models, Edge 50 Pro, and a range of other models at the kind of a more mid-tier price point. And those are really, really slick. They've actually, if you remember, a lot of the flagship, S series, I can't remember exactly which models, but they had the kind of curved off edges. Now with the S25 and so on, they've gone away from that. But yeah, Motorola are kind of doing that in the mid-tier phones, and they feel like a really nice
cool.
premium handset.
Nice.
And pretty capable.
What version of Android did you say it's running?
So it does vary according to the device, but most of them are running Android 15 now, so they're pretty current. But of course now Android 16 has landed, and it's the perfect question, because really the challenge I have with Moto products at this stage is that they're not on the same page as, say, Samsung and Google when it comes to updates, which seems to be the story. Really, once you move from Samsung to any of the other Android brands, there's a variance in terms of how often the updates come out. So, in most cases, it's with a Samsung device, you're going to get updates, probably on a monthly type of basis, and you do get some variance between, the flagship, products and the lower tier devices. But generally, you're getting these monthly type of updates, and you're getting them for basically years and years and years, right? So we've moved from a position where you couldn't have that much confidence around your Android devices, and you might get one or two operating system bumps, where Samsung and Google themselves with their own devices are doing 4 or 5 or more years. So pretty much you can feel like, okay, I'll buy this device today, it's going to have a life even if I pass it on to another family member, if it's a personal purchase, or if it goes into a pool within a business. Hey, it's going to have probably 5 years of useful life to it if it doesn't get smashed and so on.
And given our conversation regarding security and stuff like that, it's good
and
to have regular rollout.
The security side is really, really important as well. So this is my sort of my only challenge, but I think it's a pretty important one for Motorola, is that they haven't got up to that sort of same consistency and length of updates. So if you are going to look at these devices, and some of them are, as I say, really nice, I would say you've got to just weigh that up. I did hear that EU are putting in a mandate, I believe, around Android phones and them needing to be able to get updates, I think, for 5 years. So that's starting to come through. Yep. And I imagine what we will see with the future phones from Motorola is, hey, if they've got to comply in one part of the world, that's going to flow on to New Zealand. I haven't delved into the sort of all the depths of exactly what that means, how quickly we will see those changes. But I know, Motorola have already got, I think, at least one device that's got this, 5-year commitment in terms of updates, and I think that's pretty positive. So, for our listeners who are probably, they want to make sure their devices and so on are secure, that would be the one area I'd be keeping a look at. And look, I know probably, most people that have got an Android device, and they're really varied in terms of the versions of operating systems and so on that people run. You might well get away and not ever have any sort of a security issue or a drama. But I know for me and in my business, we want to have that peace of mind, and for my family, that the devices that we're running are going to be kept up to date and we minimise the security issues.
Exactly.
There.
There's enough
Yeah.
things to be worrying about.
What do you tend to use? Are you more of in the Apple camp?
No, actually, I probably earlier on this year. So I've historically been Android, and then probably my last couple of phones have been Oppo. But then earlier on this year, I migrated to an iPhone 16, just because I use a lot of Mac-related stuff. I thought it'd be a seamless move. Turns out that I was like the muscle memory was so strong that it was actually hard to use. And then I subsequently went back and just got an Oppo 13, I think it is, maybe a Reno, something like that. I can't remember. Yeah. Because of that's what I'm used to. Yeah. And then also because I've got 2 kids, I found that the 16, I've got a boy who's 2, and he used to actually pick it up and throw it, and I was like, this is too heavy, you're throwing this at your sister. Please don't do that. And it's an expensive phone. A, I don't want it broken, and B, I don't want you to be using it as a weapon. And then the battery is also a key consideration for me, and it looks like all of these bad boys have like a reasonable sized battery, which is good, with fast charging. I guess that's the way it is with majority of phones these days.
Well, Oppo, have done very well on that. So that's been one of their kind of differentiators
points,
in terms of their what do they call it, Super VOOC and so on. They're very fast, charging, and I think each brand has got their own elements. So it's worth having a look around. But I did enjoy looking through at Spark. The varying sort of Moto models and these ones that I've been trying out, which the G05 and the G15 are coming in at some pretty sharp sort of price points. I think the G15 $229. For what's a reasonably capable phone at that price point. They do some interesting stuff with memory. They've got less RAM, but then they kind of do a virtual memory type thing. I haven't noticed so much of that going on in recent years, but that's a part of the approach that they've taken. But for the price point, it seems to be good bang for buck. But do check up on that update side of things would be my recommendation to consider.
Going completely off track, have you come across the Nothing phone? The Nothing?
Which
its price point was quite interesting.
I was looking at some data, sort of comparing Nothing with some of the other brands. And it is. I think there are some real fans.
Hardcore fans.
Some friends that
like,
are just like, look,
hardcore.
I'm all the way on the
nothing
phone.
Nothing or nothing, pretty much.
And you get that, but I actually got AI to do a bit of comparison between a Nothing phone, kind of Android, what other Androids at a similar price point. I think between Motorola and Samsung, and the particular chart that it came up with. The Nothing phone certainly didn't win on that one. I think the camera side of things, there's quite a key element to getting the best out of cameras these days that comes in from the software. And so if you take the best phones from a camera perspective, it's not just the sensor, it's how well they've developed the software that gives you a good night shot or gives you the best results in a day situation. And that stuff's not necessarily all just native to Android. It seems to be sort of specific to the different vendor. So that's kind of, I guess, part of what you have to toss up and weigh up.
What are you actually going to use it for? And stuff like that. I can remember in my and this was like cursory research of the Nothing phone. It seemed from a spec level that it was reasonable for its price point, but the thing that jumped out for me was the IP ratings. I think it's IP68. Is that the one that's waterproof?
Water and dust proof.
I don't think it was. It was like IP66 or 67 or something, which was just a step below some of the competitors of a similar price point. And because that was important to me, I was like,
well, it is an area you get issues. So I had a Samsung S20, and over summer I was out with my brother. We were out on a little inflatable that he keeps on his camper van, and we ducked out for a number of kind of trips fishing, and there were dolphins and all the rest of it. We went into some caves, and it was
sounds awesome.
It was an amazing time. But I thought, this is an older phone, but it still does awesome video, awesome, great phone. And so I was like, well, I'll take that out because look, worst case, I drop it in the ocean. I haven't dropped my primary device, right? And that was all going really well, and there was, different stuff underwater, and so I, leant out of the side of the it was effectively a dinghy, and put it in the water, and that model, the back was basically glued on, the rating was irrelevant at that stage. The back came off, ruined the phone, all the footage I had of the dolphins and all the other sort of sea life and things that we had seen in these caves we'd been in, and all over. So so you do have to be a little bit cautious, and sometimes as an age of a device increases, your confidence in some of those things maybe should drop off. Now, I don't think Samsung are kind of gluing the phones together like they were with the S20, but I wasn't feeling very happy with Samsung as a brand at that
moment
point.
in time.
Just one other gadget to mention: laptops. Always interested in sort of keeping up with the play and what's going to be the right thing for for me. It's always that mix of what's going to suit sort of from a family perspective, what's going to suit business wise. And of course, we've been working with HP, and they fired across the HP EliteBook Ultra G1. Now, this is a at the higher end of the sort of the business laptops from HP, and I guess the bit that kind of caught me off guard, because I don't have this happen very often these days, is people going, "Oh, what's that laptop?
Looks pretty
I like
fresh.
the look of that." And it's just that much kind of slimmer, and
got a nice finish to it.
and lighter than a lot of other laptops, that it sort of caught the attention. So it's running the newest generation of chip from Intel. It's a Core Ultra 7. It's got the AI neural processing unit in it. Comes in a just fraction under 1.2 kilos, so it's just pretty small and light, and so really helpful. The thing is, the slimmer the device you get down to, you end up losing some of the ports. So this one, I'm quite often on a laptop that's got it folds down to reveal an Ethernet. This one has got a little sort of fold out port to reveal a USB-A.
Oh, wow.
Because it's that much slimmer that you need to actually fold it out to get access to the USB-A, and then it's got 3 USB-C ports. But really slick, decent sort of webcam for conferencing and so on, and reasonably decent sort of battery life, running the newest Intel chip. Higher res screen, which we don't see on too many business laptops these days. So it's a sort of 2.8K display rather than the usual, I guess, that we get with sort of full HD being pretty much the norm across business devices. So the only gotcha is it's about $3,700 as the price. So you are paying that sort of premium over your typical ones, but you put that alongside your various MacBook options and so on, and your other Windows-based laptops, and you're getting something a little bit different and a little bit more premium for your money. So well worth a look. I've enjoyed using this one. I think they might want it back at some stage, though.
Are you going to give it back?
That's the only downside. So now I have to negotiate with them on whether they really need it back. So
good on you.
So we will see. And a little word of warning just on another gadget. Usually in a business environment, I would always encourage people to make sure they've got the 3-year on-site warranty. No one wants to be without a device for a while. Anyway, when the new ARM chips kind of came out with Microsoft Surfaces last year, I thought we better order one of these and get our hands on and get a feel for the technology. And I was really impressed. Great battery life. It works well. Not every application sort of runs on the ARM device, but what really got me was this was a business machine, but it didn't go through our usual kind of acquisition, because it was kind of like, hey, let's test this out. So it didn't get the upgraded warranties, which are a little bit more limited than what you'll get from HP and Lenovo in New Zealand, who will come on site and they'll swap things out and they'll get you working again with Microsoft and Apple. They don't have that kind of on-site in the New Zealand market. Well, I was shocked with just how ridiculous Microsoft's Surface was on Microsoft's warranty service was on their laptop. Basically, they said, oh, you got to send it in. This is their standard business model, right? So not the consumer model, but a business model. Their standard warranty that, oh, you've got to send it back to us. No, we're not going to send you an advanced replacement. You've got to have bought the premium warranty for that. It's like, okay, yeah, that's fair enough. That hadn't been ordered with it, right? Anyway, the emails backwards and forwards. They acknowledged receipt of it a week after the courier showed they had received it. And then they said, oh, well, we don't have any anyway. So
Great.
Roughly 5% of this laptop's life was spent at Microsoft before they got round to sending a replacement. So it was over a month without a laptop.
Wow.
I mean, I can't think of any brand in this world that sells a business laptop where it would be acceptable to have it for, I mean, as I say, usually it's like get an on-site warranty, or return the advanced replacement, so you're not without a device.
Yeah, totally.
So Microsoft, hang your head in shame. That sort of service, I think, is absolutely disgusting, and people should be warned. So there you go. Pay for your upgrade
too busy
warranty.
focusing on SharePoint and other things.
Yeah. So all right. Well, that's us. It's been really, really cool to have you on the show, Owen.
Thank you for having me. It's been awesome.
Thank you for taking the time to come and
in this freezing cold morning
and share some insights for folks that are interested in hearing a little bit more about Gravity. Where do they go and have a look?
We've got a website called thisisgravity.co, and then if you want to connect with me, eoghan.tech. It gets me to LinkedIn, and I'm a big consumer on Twitter, but not really a great poster. But I'm launch addict on there.
Yeah. It's good. And any sort of final words around Gravity for those that might be a bit curious of they're wondering, is this a company we should be dealing with? Like, is there an example of project you've done recently that might give people a bit more of a
with one of your show
taste?
sponsors? We've done a lot of stuff actually with One New Zealand. So One Wallet is a more recent one.
Okay.
Right through from the conception right through to the launch, been pivotal to that from the product and the tech delivery side of stuff. And then you'll hear more about something called Tika in the very near future, which is a legal tech firm here in New Zealand, which is kind of using kind of advanced AI to help enable survivors of sexual harm kind of seek different types of justice.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, well, thanks for that. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and I'll be exciting. You should get the founders on if you haven't already got them lined up.
Yeah. Okay. All right, that's great. Well, thank you very much, and thanks everyone for listening in, and we will catch you on the next episode of the New Zealand Tech Podcast. And of course, a big thank you to our show partners, to Workday, Gorilla Technology, HP, Spark, 2 Degrees, and 1NZ. Cheers.
The New Zealand Tech Podcast, brought to you by Gorilla Technology, proactive and strategic IT.